So one of the important things to bear in mind, and one of the reasons why the game is worth the candle, is because bibliographical taxonomy in no way equals textual schematics. Now, why do I tell you that? Because I'm a professor and I get paid to use big words that obfuscate what I really want to say. So I'm going to explain, okay? The bibliographical taxonomy is, we could say we have a manuscript. And then we say we have a manuscript, a first edition, a second edition, a third edition, a fourth edition, and so on. And we say, yeah, sure, that's we line those all up, we assign them dates, we know how they work and all the rest. But particularly for older texts, nothing works in a linear fashion like that. Almost never. Typically, you might get something like this instead. You get the author's manuscript, and the manuscript goes to the printer, and you get the first edition. And that's great. And then, maybe you quickly reprint the second edition. But then, when you want to make the third edition, the author, who has a copy of the first edition, makes changes from his original manuscript, and you have the third edition. But then, the author dies. And someone comes along and says, gosh, I have a copy of the second edition, and I want to make an edition. Somebody else comes along and says, oh, that was really stupid. Let's take the first. Now, 100 years pass. You are charged with the dull duty of an editor. What's the text? What's the text? How would anybody make a determination as to what the proper text to reproduce in your Oxford Scholarly Edition would be? This is a simple one. This is an easy one. What if along somebody finds a later manuscript, the so-called deathbed manuscript, let's say, that has all sorts of changes and additions, a new chapter 27 and a half? Well, how does that fit in, and how would you make a scholarly edition out of that? So the transmission of a text is almost never straightforward over time. It's almost never straightforward in history. And because of that, it's really hard. We know what the work is. Let's say, bless you, we say the work is, Moby Dick. But then, what's the text? What's the true text of Moby Dick or King Lear? Many of you will know that the quarto edition of King Lear has no scene divisions at all, and is a very, very different play than the folio edition of King Lear. So much so that the Oxford Shakespeare reproduces two texts of King Lear independently and says they cannot be combined in any appropriate way because they're two different works of art. Well, which is King Lear? And how would you know? Well, this is the duty of the scholarly editor, and it can get pretty complicated. But of course, a scholar coming along afterwards might not just want this last edition, or might not just want this first edition. He might want to see the text in all its recensions. She might want to reconstruct what's already been done in order to produce a new edition. How would you do that? And that's why you would use a scholarly edition that contained the histories of the text and the histories of all their textual variants. Is everybody with me? Yeah? Yeah? So far, so good?